You're saying fat often. And I want to make sure that I'm being respectful.
Yes, you can call me fat. We're here.
Okay.
Like I said, you can call me fat. You can call me fat.
So from a body shaming standpoint, you're not. Is that one of those things where you have to ask the person? Is it to or like what's appropriate for that?
I think it's like constantly changing, right? Because like on the one hand, like my official argument is fat is just a descriptor. It doesn't and shouldn't carry any judgment value, right? Like right. I'm a 300+ pound woman. Like, and it's interesting when people are like, "Oh, you're not fat. You're big boned. You're strong. I'm like, I am strong. Oh, you're beautiful. I am that. Also, I'm fat. I mean, technically, I guess officially, I have a lot of fat, right? Like, I guess that is what is very technical. But there is a movement that I am a part of that says we just want the word fat to be a neutral descriptor.
Okay.
Now, again, you can't un-America, you can't unworld the world. That word is very loaded for many, many people. I remember the first time I called myself fat in front of my niece, and she was maybe 3 or 4, and she's like, "That's a bad word." And I think honestly, in her household, it's a very bad word.
Okay, I got you.
And I'm like, no, I mean, we can not say that I'm fat, but like, you can see me. Like, but because there is so much weight on that word, and because so many people have been bullied, abused with that word, I think that, what I would recommend, like if you hear someone self-refer to themselves as fat a lot, maybe do like you just did. Like, you refer to yourself as fat, is it okay if I do too? And they'll probably be like, yeah, because they're, because once you hit the point where you're comfortable self-referring, you probably also want the word used, because there's like a weird amount of like shame around the word. It's like very bizarre because you like literally can't hide it. But
I feel like we're doing that with a lot of other types of words, and I am super sensitive to being respectful of other people, and I appreciate when they make room for my ignorance, because I'm not trying to be intentionally harmful, and I think my programming right now is such to where I'm very uncomfortable using the word fat. It's just
like people of size. That's kind of like the like it feels very PC, right? Like people of size or larger body,
plus size.
Okay. And yeah.
But I appreciate you just. I feel like I understand the logic behind the use of the word, because I feel like it's intentional in what your attempt to do is, which is take the shame out of the word. I mean, the
shame and negativity. I want it to be a neutral descriptor. Like, oh, that's a thin woman, that's a fat woman. Like, and not that now if that's a joke, we know the punchline's gonna be on the fat woman. Like, just that's a thin woman, that's a fat woman. I want it to be neutral. Okay. I mean, I've been fat my whole life. Now it's interesting because like people's body, like not just my personal body changes over time, but like also like average bodies change over time. And so like, while I was like the biggest kid in elementary school, now like little kids are bigger than they were then, but for the time I've been big my whole life, except for when I was first born. I was very small when I was first born. But let's say from 2 on, I was always big, and I've always heard other people's, thoughts and feelings and opinions on my body. All the external programming is simultaneously telling you like what you need to do to be an object of desire. And then they're telling you to do absolutely nothing with that desire, right? Like your own or anybody else's. And then to be like fat, they're telling you, oh, and you'll never be desirable, right? I have been handed exercise videos my entire life. I even had, and I hope it's in the collection, they got for me in, I guess it had to be the 80s, a Miss Piggy workout album, like record, like Okay. And while I do not have any memories of doing the Miss Piggy workout, just the fact that I'm a toddler basically with but it's the 80s, right? Like everybody needs to be skinny, right? You don't give Coke to toddlers, so you give them Miss Piggy workout albums so that they can work on their fitness, I guess. But I mean, that's kind of what it is to be a fat girl. I'm a toddler with a workout record. What? And so I always had.
You didn't internalize any of that?
Hell yeah, I did.
Okay, because the way you're saying it, I'm okay. I got you.
Absolutely.
I got you.
And so I don't know if there's any journey that you've ever made it to the other side of and you kind of forget how bad it was. I think even healing, so possibly even with your leg, you might be once you remember how to walk, you forget oh my gosh, there was a day I could barely get out of bed. It's once you're on the other side, you forget. And
yeah,
I spent much of my life thinking I was 50 pounds from this, 20 pounds from this. If I lose this amount of weight, then I can blah, blah, blah. Maybe if I lose weight, I can da, 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 da. And at some point I woke up, but no, I did really cool things. I did really interesting things, but I was always X amount of pounds from being worthy of, honestly, existence was the core belief, right? It was always oh, well, maybe if I lose weight, I can, and you can fill in the blank. And so sometimes I forget how much that was a part of me. But yeah, I can't even say diet culture was a part of my life. Diet culture was my life probably solidly for the first 25 years of it. Yeah.
Being where you are now in your life and doing all the things that you've done, you're married, so you found love. So that was bullshit.
Yeah, nobody's gonna love a fat girl. Go on.
So that was bullshit. You're not gonna be desirable. That was bullshit. You can't do this and that and the third. That was bullshit. You're proving that it's all bullshit, right? How do you handle the voices?
Mine or other people's?
Both.
Mine, I had to teach that it was bullshit. And I did a pretty good job about it. It started, I think, when I was in high school-ish. My mom had a lot of mirrors in the house. And just spent, I think a lot of people do at certain ages, a lot of time just looking at myself in the mirror. But weirdly, I feel I got desensitized to my own body. So I can't even say that I initially came to love my body, but I think I literally just I don't know, poke your stomach and it jiggles and you're ah, and you do it enough times and it stops shocking you or whatever. The voices now are more subtle, but I just call them out. I call them out I try to call out other people in my life, if that makes sense. And I question, you have to question, what is that? Where is that coming from? What does that mean? Do you believe that? And you have to do that with any systemic bias. So,
good point.
I remember I was at the beach and there was this fat guy on a bicycle. And I guess I don't usually see fat guys on a bicycle, but something about seeing this guy on this bicycle. And what was interesting is he had all the gear. So to me, that meant he was serious, right? Because sometimes somebody's riding a bike, but this looked like a biker, but also this was 350, 400 pound biker. And so my brain kind of did a does not compute thing. And I was well, hey, founder of the Society of Fat Mermaids, what's going on here? And that was not an out loud conversation, but I just sat with myself and dissected that what are you saying? And I just had to ask myself those questions. But, if another ism comes up, gosh, weird stuff comes up that makes me confront my anti-Blackness all the time, and it's okay, racist in class as much. Let's play with this. And so I just call those voices out. They're and I've done a good job. So it's not as much, but what's there is kind of deep because it's not the superficial stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so we just sit down, we talk about it, we unpack it, and is that true? what is this really saying or showing or demonstrating? And I just go from there.